This is James Lupton, delighted to be joined with Jesse Reid. Jesse, how are you, sir?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you for asking. Thanks for joining me today. First question, what does boxing mean to you?
Well, it's kind of been my whole dream of happiness. I mean, I'm still working today. Uh, I love it. It's keeping me alive. I'm 82 years old, and I fought myself, and to know the people that I've been involved with in boxing has been a beautiful thing. I can't say enough. And Fergo, I'm right working with him, helping him, learning a lot from him too. He reminds me so much of myself. He's just a kind man with a lot of knowledge and intelligence, and he does such a wonderful job with his boys. I remember when my son was fighting, how tough it was. I couldn't train him because it was so much pressure, in my mind, and he relaxes with it so well, and I'm really happy that I got a chance to work with him. So, James, I can't say enough. He's helped me.
Absolutely. I want to take you back because you mentioned that you fought yourself. You had, I think it was 8 pro fights, 93 amateur fights, but I want to take you back to day one. Do you remember your introduction to boxing? Do you remember your first day in the boxing gym, or what's your earliest memory of yourself boxing?
Well, the biggest memory I ever had is when I went to the Hoover Street gym to look Jackie McCoy up. I had read about him that he was a kind and good man, and he had some great fighters. And I went into the gym, and an old man by the name of Jake Shagrew, who I didn't know, and it was a real strong gym in Compton. And I'm probably one of the only white guys that was in there. And I heard this voice say, "Hey, Whitey, what do you want?" And I said, "Well, I'm looking for Jackie McCoy." He says, "Go over in that corner and practice falling down. You're going to do a lot of it." And when he said that to me, I looked at him and I thought, I got to show this guy that I can fight. And I went over and I talked to Jackie and Eddie Futch. He was there, and Thel Torrance, a lot of great people. And then one day I'm leaving the gym a couple of years later, and Jake says, "Jesse," and I said, "Yeah." He says, "You're one tough son of a gun," and that I think was the best compliment I could have ever gotten as a fighter from a man that was really a good cut man and a knowledgeable person in boxing. And it brought me to reality, knowing that you have to prove yourself and you got to fight with your heart. It's the most important thing there is. And I think in life, it's kind of I see Trump and how hard he's fighting and doing the things he's doing. And people are going at him and doing this and that. I know that feeling. And I admire him as a person because he's proven people wrong, and it just makes me proud. So that's about. I just think he's a great man.
Everyone,
That's probably.
go on.
Go ahead.
So everybody has their own reasons for why they walk into a boxing gym, whether they be a boxing fan growing up watching it on TV, whether they was getting bullied in school, whether they wanted to go for fitness reasons. What was your reason to go to the gym for the first time to train?
Well, I'd fought in the service, and I did very well. I won the all service championships. I won the world amateur championships. I was a tough guy. I wasn't a real skilled athlete at that time. I was just really tough. And knowing that when you can take a crowd and they know who you are and they know your heart is there, it's a wonderful feeling. I mean, you can't even put it in words. So when someone's looking at you as somebody that's not going to do that well and you do well, and then you have your country behind you, like you're in the Navy. I was in the Navy, and I was in special services, and I was around great people. It just, I mean, my trainer was a great trainer, Emil Griffith's uncle, and Chief Griffith, and he admired the way I fought with my heart. I wasn't skilled, I was just tough. But I learned so much from different people around the gyms, like Eddie Futch and Jackie McCoy. They were great people, and they taught me a lot. And actually, to tell you a story, my first fighter that I ever had was a Jesse Burnett, and the reason that I got him is because I cared about him, and he liked my personality, and he was a great fighter. I mean, Bob Foster, the newspapers read, "Who's the world champion, Bob Foster or Jesse Burnett?" I sent him up to box with Bob Foster, and he did very well. He had fought four world champions and actually learned the business of boxing. I mean, he actually won those fights but never got the decisions. I took him to Japan and got him sponsored. I started learning that boxing is a tough game, not only in the ring but outside the ring. And you have to have people that care about you and that they really do love you to make you a better fighter. And that's what Jesse found with me. He wouldn't fight for anybody else. He said, "I want to be with you for the rest of my career." And he stayed. Then you could have fighters without a contract. I mean, that they were loyal. But it's not like that anymore. If somebody offers them money, money talks and everything else kind of it goes down the tubes. But hey, what can I say? I've been very fortunate. I've had some great fighters. I've had a lot of them that were really tough individuals, and you know, like like Johnny Tappy. I mean, how could you tell anybody how great he was? I mean, he just was a wonderful person, and he loved the game, and he put his heart and soul into it. And I think really boxing is something you have to put your heart and soul into. It's the most important thing, and it teaches you about life. And it's a beautiful thing when you can get people in the crowd booing you when you walk into another country or another state and they're booing you and you get those people to cheer you, you know you've done something. And that's the thing that I think I've helped kids with, to learn is to make the crowd cheer for you even though they might be booing you. So I'm happy to know that I'm still a part of it, and that's what's keeping me alive. I'm really thrilled to be what I'm doing. I mean, I love boxing, and George Foreman loved boxing. He loved it very, very much. So I understand what it is to go into another state or another country and have to fight, and it just a beautiful thing. I mean, that when you can turn those boos into cheers. I'll tell you another story. Billy Hardy, I fought him with Orlando Candizales. And I told Orlando before the fight, this is a big bantamweight. He's a big, strong guy. But I think with your angles and the way you turn people into punches, you're going to surprise a lot of people. You're a tremendous, tremendous fighter. And after the fight, he won a split decision in Stafford, England, in the fight. And he looked at me and I in the shower and he goes, "Jesse, don't ever tell me I've got a fight that it's not going to be a hard fight." He said that people just I mean, the people in that crowd, they say Hardy, Hardy, and Hardy would pick himself up. I think Orlando knocked him down one or two times in that fight, but didn't knock him out. The crowd picked Hardy up, and he was a fighter that fought for his country. So as we're leaving the BBC television, and I told Orlando, "Don't worry, that was a great experience for you to learn from." He said, "Man, that guy was tough." So as we're walking out, the BBC television said, "Would you give us a rematch? That's a fight that we really want to see again." And I said, "Oh, yeah, but not here." I learned a lesson too. I said, "I'm going to bring him over to Laredo, Texas, in front of maybe 7 or 8 thousand Mexicans cheering for Orlando." I learned a lesson. And Orlando knocked him. I mean, I don't think Billy Hardy ever got knocked out, but Orlando knocked him out for a long time. And thank God he was okay. But it was a beautiful knockout. So I realize how important it is to have a crowd cheering for you. You learn things like that as you go. And no matter what, Orlando probably was one of the greatest fighters I've ever had. I've had a lot of great fighters, but he just was so dedicated to the sport. and just a quiet young man. But when he got in that ring, you knew who he was, and that's a beautiful thing that you learn. So just keep plugging away, young man, because he's coaching kids today. And I think he has a couple of gyms and he's helping boxing. That's the kind of people you want around boxing. So that's about probably the last I can never say that I was with a great fighter. But I have some great amateur kids I'm working with right now, and they're to know that I'm able to give them information that can help them. I'm excited about that, and I'm also excited about Fergo and his two boys that I've been part of, spending some time with. I've really enjoyed it very much. And boy, are they great athletes. And I admire the father because I know how tough it is to train your kids. It's not an easy situation.
No,
So
definitely.
that's about, yeah.
Uh,
James, I'm sorry I talked over you. But, anyways, I love boxing and what it does for you.
Absolutely. And obviously you have a very successful career in the sport and you can see the passion you have for it still to this day. What's your favorite memory from your career so far, Jesse?
Well, it's like I told, believe it or not, there's a lot of them. I mean, I'm even having great times now. But when Bruce Curry fought Wilfredo Benitez in Madison Square Garden, Teddy Brenner had called me up and said, Jesse, I've got a great, and Bruce only had 14 fights at that time. And he said, Jesse, I've got a great fight for you. We're going to offer you real good money. And I want you to think about it, but I like it. I said, only has 14 fights, but I had him sponsored by the Japanese at that time. Some people that I had met through my amateur career when I was in the service. And he says, I'm going to bring him over here to Madison Square Garden. He said, it's going to be a great fight. I think Benitez was like 30 pro fights undefeated, and Bruce was 14-0. And Benitez didn't know that much about Bruce, that they thought he was just somebody that they can just bang around. And so I told Bruce, I says, Bruce, this is going to be a tough fight, but I think you have a chance to knock this guy out because he's not going to respect you. And Bruce looked at me, and Bruce wasn't afraid of anybody. Boxing was his life. And he said, hey, that's no problem. Let's do it. Well, at the same time that Bruce was going to fight him, I had Jesse Burnett in a fight that was going to go on in Japan. No, Shotgun Alvarado was going to fight in Japan, and I had got the Japanese to sponsor Bruce and Shotgun and Jesse Burnett. That Jesse, they called him Jesse Masako, and Bruce was Curry Fuji. So they had Japanese last names when they boxed. But to go back to the Benitez fight, that fight was, I couldn't go, so I sent my brother-in-law and Jake Shagru, who was the guy that made fun of me, to that fight. He was a good cut man. And honest to God, Bruce won that fight. He knocked him down, knocked him clean out of the ring. And McCarthy went out of the ring, picked the Benitez up and brought him back in the ring, which is illegal. There were probably 10 things that were done in that fight. But to make a long story short, Bruce lost a split decision, knocking Alfredo Benitez down 4 times. In fact, knocked clean out of the ropes. He fell into the ropes and fell out of the ring. If you watch the tape, you'll laugh your head off. You'll never believe it. But after that fight, I remember what Bruce told me. He said, Jess, what do you think? What do you think of me as a fighter? I said, I think you're a great fighter and you're going to win the world title. This fight is going to take you to the number one or two in the world. And that's what he did. He went to number one in the world. And actually, everybody knew that he won that fight. So what did I do? I tried to get a rematch, and I tried and I tried. Finally, I got one, and Benitez looked like a track star in the fight. And naturally, we lost another decision. But to make a long story short, Bruce won the world title against Leroy Haley. Those were memories that I'll never forget because Bruce was somebody that had a brother, Donald Curry, that was a Great fighter, but Bruce, believe it or not, I had Bruce box with Donald to get ready for the Tommy Hearns fight, and Bruce dropped him on the ground. They were like half brothers, but they loved each other. I know they did. But Bruce was he was just somebody that was very tough, and it reminded me of me, if to what how I came up in boxing. I was very fortunate that I was around the people that I was around. And Bruce was very fortunate that him and I were together as a team because I took him to a long haul, a lot of tough fights, but he ended up winning the world title. And I picked him in the air and I said, Bruce, you're champion of the world. That feeling, it's hard to explain, but it's like winning the impossible. It's a beautiful thing. And that's what boxing does for you. Just those memories. And that happens so many times. Happened with Jesse Burnett. It happened with Reggie Johnson, Paul Spadafora when he boxed Mayweather. That's another story. That's online. I mean, I put that online. I taped it. I remember the father coming to me when saying, "Hey, when you gonna let that Paisano box a real fighter?" And I said, "Who's that?" He said, "My son, Mayweather Jr." And I says, "What are you talking about?" I says, "They're both great fighters. Why would they want to spar together?" He says, "Oh, we're going to knock him out in one round." And I went over to Paul and I says, "Paul, what do you think of that? Jesse, I don't care if I'm whatever's going on. Let me know. I want to go with that guy. I'm going to teach him a lesson." What did he do? He beat the hell out of him. And that's still online and it's showed every day. I mean, there's a lot of sadness too in boxing when you look at some of the things that these kids go through and the toughness they have to show and the times that they have to perform. It's unbelievable, but there's good memories. And believe me, if you look at Paul right now, he's proud as all get out of who he is. I don't care what they say about him. I'm proud of him. I'm so proud of him because I know it's on record what he did with Mayweather, and Mayweather knows. He'll never forget that. And actually, I think it made Mayweather a better fighter. I think it made him realize that he had to run and train and be right. Don't be looking down on people. Remember that they can fight. And I think it taught him some humility. And I think that was good. So that's what's good about boxing. You can talk all you want, but you still got to get in that ring and show what the heck you can do. And if you can't do it and you're talking, it's going to show. And believe me, that's an embarrassing situation. So that's about the size of what I could say. I've been involved. I've been lucky and fortunate that I can be involved with so many world champs. I've trained 31 world champions. I mean, and I've been in a lot of tough fights. I mean, and I did talk to George Foreman, and I'm so proud of that I know that I had those times that maybe he called me when I was a head coach at the Houston Boxing Association. And he said, Jesse, what do you think about me making a comeback? And I said, that'd be amazing. He says, I'm thinking about it, but right now I'm learning a lot of things. And just to know that I was a part of that man's life and he was a part of my life, how can you get that? You can't get that. And I just, what more can I say? But I'm just proud that you called me and that I'm doing this and very proud of it. And that I'm proud that, that I'm working with these two Irish boys. They are tremendous young men and they love the game and they have two different personalities and they've got a great father. And Scott Murray, I remember when I first met Scott, when I was a head coach at the Houston Boxing Association, and we had our conversations. And look at him today. He's a top promoter, and he's doing such a wonderful job, and he's helping a lot of people. I just hope people look at him and respect him the right way because he's going to do good for boxing. He's a wonderful person. So what more can I say?
Absolutely, sure is. Um, you mentioned a couple of names there. So Paul Spadafora, you've mentioned Johnny Tapia. You also coached Hector Camacho as well. And I wanted to ask you about those three in particular. They were
Sure.
certainly characters. They had their vices away from the ring. For you, how do you as a coach almost tame them and keep them disciplined?
I think it's a respect. I could look eye to eye with both of them, all three of them, and they would look at me when they fought. You look at the tapes and you'll see them look at me right in the eyes. And they knew they were going to war with me. It's like being in war. Thank God I didn't have to go to war, but just to know that I'm in war every day with boxing. Boxing is a tough game. It's not just you win this or you win that. You gotta prove yourself the hard way. It's not a simple little thing. And just to know that I've had 31 world champions and the things they went through, there's a million stories. But I'm just proud that we accomplished it. And I mean, there's stuff that people would say, "Hey, don't take that fight." That's when Reggie Johnson fought Guthrie, he had knocked everybody out, and Reggie looked at me, and I got Reggie late in his career, but he won two world titles with me. And I looked at him. I said, "Reggie, there's only a couple of people that know you're going to win this, and that's you and me." I said, "You just be smart." And I'll tell you, this guy usually just intimidates a lot of people. And I think if you just stay in his chest, you're going to find out that you're there for real. Well, what did he do? He knocked him dead in the fifth round. I mean, Reggie Johnson, uh, Bruce Curry, Johnny Tapia, Roger Mayweather. If you look at Roger when he fought Chavez, he looked me right in the eyes and he knew that I was there for him. And he knew he can count on what I'm telling him, that it was coming from my heart. I was fighting with him. That was another great story. When he fought Roberto Duran, it was in the Forum and it was in Los Angeles. And Roger was thinking in his mind, whatever he was thinking, I can't speak for him. He didn't know in his heart that he could win that. But I think when he was looking at me, I think he felt he could win it. I remember I think it was like the fifth round, I told Ellisborough, the referee, I said, if you don't break these guys properly, I'm going to break them. He said, you get in this ring and I'll throw you out of here. I said, you just try it. So Roger knew that I was there for him. And when that fifth round came in, and Chavez is lining him up, and Ellisborough's got his hand on him and ready to hit him. And as soon as he went to throw the punch, I kind of ducked underneath Duran, and he fell on my shoulder. And I picked him up in front of 14,000 Mexicans or whatever it was there. And they were bombing me and doing all kinds. Walked him over to the corner and I set him down. I think Roger knew right at that point, man, Jesse would do that. I'm gonna have to start. And believe it or not, he was winning that fight on all the scorecards. I showed him. I quit training him after that. I told him, if I'm gonna put my life on the line for you to win, and you just say you quit in the 11th round of a fight you're winning on all the scorecards, I'm done with you. I would that, and I think that was a moment that Roger realized that he did something that was not right, and I knew it. And I walked out of there. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm with two security guards, and they say, "Hey, Jesse, we're not leaving you, man. These people are bombing you." I said, "I don't care." I jumped into the thing, out of the thing, and things were coming down and everything else because I had just picked, a great fighter up on my shoulder. I didn't care I was trying to win that fight. And Billy Baxter was the manager, and he said, "My God, Jesse." But boxing is something they got to look in your eyes and know you're fighting with them, not against them. That's what I'm trying to say. And just to make a long story short, I got that referee barred for life. Every person that saw that from the commission, and that guy called me time and time again. Jesse, I got to work. I said, you're never working again. You cheated in that fight. And I said, I'm not saying you stopped the fight. There was the cheat, but you cheated, and you got exactly what's coming to you. So the fighter's got to know that you're fighting with them, not against them. And that's what Fergal as a father, he's fighting with his kids, but he doesn't cause problems. He just knows they can fight, but don't mess with him. I mean, he's a tough guy, and he knows it inside of him. And I mean, you don't have to tell people. You know, inside you're going to do everything you can to help that person win that fight, whatever it takes. So, what I was trying to say is the reason I had respect and I had all the champions I've had because they could look me in the eye and know when they were in a fight that I was going to fight with them. It wasn't just baloney. And I would talk to them in a way that they realized that it was good information. So that's about what I don't know if I've over talked or whatever, but I'm glad that I got a chance to leave these memories in boxing. It's a great sport and what it does for people.
Definitely. And no, you're not over talking at all. You keep I'm fascinated by your stories, Jesse, so please do carry on. What's what's been the most exciting or the best fight that you've been involved in?
Well, to be honest with you, there's been a ton of them. I mean, God, I've been involved in so many. But I'll tell you a fight early in the career with Bruce Curry with Monroe Brooks. Monroe Brooks was managed by Jackie McCoy, who was my manager, and he was number two in the world. And Bruce had just went through a bunch of fights in Japan, but he was a great fighter. And they put that fight at the Olympic Auditorium where Don Chargan was the promoter. Well, him and Jackie McCoy were they developed world champions together. He was the matchmaker. Everything was against us. I mean, everything. But one thing they didn't count on was Bruce Curry looking me in the eyes and knowing how much he believed in what I was telling him. And he was trying to, they were trying to, I think they liked the same girl. And if I can remember right, and they didn't like each other in Fort Worth, Texas, never. So this was a big fight. I mean, it was the biggest fight on, and I think they had great commentators. There were so many good commentators that were all for Monroe Brooks. And after that fight was over, Monroe got knocked out. I think it was the seventh round, knocked cold. I mean, he couldn't even. That's the first time I ever seen him knocked out like that. But what that really stayed in my mind is I don't care what kind of politics or anything that's going on in boxing or whatever. If you have a fighter that's going to listen to you and you know what you're telling them is the honest truth, and the fighter believes in you, those moments never change. He knocked Monroe out cold. I kept telling him, Bruce, it's time now. Let's go to work. Stay on top of him. And he listened to everything I said. And they can say whatever they want about Bruce. He was a tough guy, man. And I'll never forget. I mean, there's probably been a lot of those things that have happened. And boxing is not an easy game. You don't only just win by somebody saying you win. You got to beat the politics of boxing. And if you have a punch like George Foreman had, or whatever, whoever has it, they got a chance. They always have a chance. So that's probably the biggest memory of my life. I got to say, of when Bruce, who was like, Bruce had some problems. In fact, Bruce is one of the guys that shot at me, and I don't think he shot at me because he was trying to kill me. I think he shot at me because he lost something in boxing. He lost the strength that he had with me and him together, and I think he was scared, and he actually I drove up to the Golden Glove gym, and I had told Bruce I didn't want him to fight anymore. I didn't want people to use him as an opponent, and he loved boxing. That's all he had. And he came out. I go to that gym. I'm with Steve Eisenbarth, the big heavyweight, and He suggests Bruce Curry's here. I can see his car at the end. I said, "Oh man, just watch my backside. I don't know if Bruce is going to attack me or what." And this is in books, and he goes, "Man, I don't worry. I got you covered." I said, "Okay." So who walks up to the car? It's Bruce Curry, and he's got his hands on. He was so afraid of me. He had his hands all wrapped up, and he was waiting for me to come there. And he goes, "Get out of that car. I'm going to show you I can fight." And you'll man. He wanted me to manage him like old times. And I said, "Bruce, your boxing days are over. You can't fight anymore. You're going to have to." That's all he had was boxing. I don't. I know how he felt. I can feel it. But when I went up to him and I said, "Bruce, listen, son, you can't fight anymore. I don't want you to get hurt. I want you to just, and I don't want people to use you. That's the sad part about boxing when it's taken away from you." And he goes, "Yeah," he gives me a karate punch and he hits me on top of my head. And I go, "Oh man, I'm in the fight of my life." And I looked over and Steve's, "Oh, don't worry, Jess, I got your backside." And I said, "Okay." And I'm trying to protect myself. Well, I ended up hitting Bruce. You never lose your punch. And I told him I weigh 180 pounds, son. You don't want to be punching me because I'm going to punch you. Well, I took about 30 punches for me to hit him, but I finally hit him and he hit the ground. I don't know if I didn't knock him out, but I knocked him down. And he was champion of the world, one time. But he was losing his mind, his thoughts of really good thoughts. And when I knocked him down, I didn't know, but he had a gun in his pants. That's how afraid he was. And he wasn't really, I don't think, in his heart want to do something that was bad. I just think he just didn't want to be embarrassed. And I embarrassed him. And I hear Steve, "Yeah, Jesse, he's got a gun." He got up and I ran like nobody's business and I shot into the gym, the Golden Glove gym. I locked the door and I says, "Get on that phone and call somebody. I don't want this guy to shoot me, man." And sure enough, he shot a bullet off that was probably arms at my chest high, arms distance. And it scared the hell out of everybody in there. And I thought, "God damn," I was really scared. But then all of a sudden I hear the ambulance and I think Bruce took off. And believe it or not, he called me that night when they arrested him. And he said, "Jesse, what am I doing here? There's a lot of crazy people in here." I said, "Bruce, don't worry. I'm not going to put you in jail, but I'm going to get some psychological help for you. When you start shooting a gun, that's somebody needs some help, son." And I said, and that was all the things he did for me in boxing came out of my heart. And I knew he couldn't be locked up because it would destroy him. Sure enough, they put him in a place where he was getting help, which he needed. It's just like Johnny Tapia or Paul Spadafora or anybody that's using a substance that takes them into another world. They need help. They need to get somebody that is a psychologist that can do something to help them. And Bruce knew that. "Oh, I'm getting a call, but just don't worry about it."
Oh,
Anyways, yeah, that story was a great story, and it's in my mind and my thoughts forever. Bruce did so much for me, fought so hard for me. I almost, I forgive him of all the things that they want to say or whatever. I'm proud of him. He was a champion of the world. I had him in here. I said, you crazy son of a gun, you just beat the world. You just won the world championship at Caesar's Palace." I was proud of him. That's what boxing does for you. I don't want people to go through what I went through, but I just know it's a lovely sport and it's got so much to give. And I know George feels that way too. And that's about the size of it.
I want to
Any
ask,
other questions?
yeah, one more topic I want to cover was obviously a fantastic coach, a very successful career so far. You mentioned there, over 30 world champions you've trained. You mentioned Eddie Futch in your early days there as well. Another great trainer. How much of an influence was Eddie Futch on you? What was your relationship like with him?
Oh, it was Eddie Futch and I had a great respect. He reminds me of Fergo. I mean, he is a very kind person, and he had so much to give. I watched him and studied him at the Hoover Street Gym. Thel Torrance, who worked with Reid, he was in that gym. Jackie McCoy, who had 5 world champions. He was the one that told me, Jesse, I want you to be a trainer. I think you have the spirit. That's why I quit boxing. It wasn't because I had a bad record. It was because I wanted to be a coach. I learned to be a coach from that. And I was around great people. I mean, I've been around a lot of good people in boxing, and I still am. And Eddie Futch he didn't say a lot, but boy, let me tell you, Thel Torrance will tell you, Thel worked with Eddie Futch. Uh, just a wonderful person. I've been around a lot. I've been very lucky. I've been around a lot of good people, and they all taught me. And I was built to be a boxing coach. I know what it is to be put in a corner where you can't win and you do win. I know that feeling. I know what that feeling is when you win a title and they take it away from you. I've been through that many a times. Boxing is what life's all about. It's the ups and downs. But if you have the ability, I would never put a fighter in there that I'd want them to get hurt or damaged. I'd put a fighter in there to win, to know what the feeling is to win. But you have to work hard to win. And it's not just by somebody judging you, it's by what you have in your heart. You can win by people cheering for you and loving you and respecting you. Today, I go into the gym and, I've done this, I've done that, but I still love it. I love to feel, I feel more kindness, more understanding, more respect than I've ever had in all my life. I mean, hey, I went to college. I played football. I was a football player at LA State. I was a free safety. I had Tommy Lasorda scout me in high school to catch for the Dodgers. He offered me he came to my high school to watch me play, and I hit a grand slam home run. See, I have playoffs. I've been so lucky that God gave me the talent to do the things that I do. But I think the most important thing is just to realize that you got to train and you got to work hard and you got to love what you're doing. If you don't, and you better be around people that really care about you. That's the most important thing. And I've been around a lot of good people. And I can say these names and say I was a part of it. Eddie Futch was in the Hoover Street Gym with me. Jackie McCoy was in the Hoover Street Gym with me. Thel Torrance was in the Hoover Street Gym with me. Just I mean, I forget some of the names, but they're great people today, and some of them are gone and some of them are alive. And those memories will be with me the rest of my life. And thank God that I had them. I'm just proud of it.
No, absolutely. And thank you for your time today, Jesse, as well. It's been a real pleasure, privilege to speak to yourself and hear your stories. And hopefully we can set up another call sometime in the future and hear some more.
You, James, I had a great time with you. Thank you for listening, and I appreciate all you're doing.
Thank you very much. We'll speak soon. Thanks, Jesse. Have a good day.
All right, God bless. Bye bye.